James Craig right now, the former Detroit police chief. And Chief, always good to have you. Maybe you can help me sort out some of these details you've been hearing, particularly the one that had, Ethan with his parents, talking to administrators, teachers, that very morning of the shootings, and then 2 hours later, doing the shooting and being allowed to return to class and being allowed to keep his backpack. Now, to be fair, we understand that the administrators there had no idea he had a weapon on him, but what do you make of it all?
Hey, Neil, as always, thank you for having me on your show. As I look at this, let me first start by saying, my prayers certainly go out to the Oxford family. Certainly I want to applaud the work, the coordinated efforts by the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, the Detroit Police Department, and certainly U.S. Marshals. Great police work. But I'm telling you, based on my professional judgment, this could have been prevented. So while there are a lot of facts that are unknown at this point, and then we can speculate on what really happened, the one thing that we do know is that when the parents, met with a first-line employee, a counselor, and possibly a teacher knew, nothing was done. What should have happened, this information should have been pushed right up to the top of that school organization, that administrator, as well as notifying local law enforcement, the Oakland County Sheriffs. And those parents should have taken a strong position, even if that first-line employee, a counselor, said, oh, he can go back to his classroom. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And that should be a lessons learned. There was, as your prior guest said, this was a cry for help. There was a picture. It was depiction of blood.
Right.
There was some, and the parents certainly knew about the gun, although they didn't mention it to the counselor, we assume. So this could have been prevented, and how tragic this situation is just because of failed leadership.
Chief, I'm wondering too, in that meeting that morning of the shooting, did the parents know that this particular gun was missing? It was bought just 4 days earlier, for Ethan, and they would have checked. Please tell us you don't have that gun on you or in your backpack. Now, later on that day, when the shooting had transpired, we don't know the exact timing, Chief, but at least the mother had been texting concerned, don't do it. The father later on, presumably after getting wind of the shooting, suspecting and calling police that he thinks it was his son. So the timing is everything, and we don't know the exact timeline, Chief, but I'm wondering what their role would be here. If they, in fact, knew that that gun was missing and they're drawn to this meeting at school, you would think that would come up, or even the parents would raise it out of an abundance of concern.
Neil, there are a lot of questions, and I agree. When did, and I know you brought it up earlier with Ted, when did the mother send that text message? Was it sounded like it was done after the shooting incident.
Right.
And this was a response to, I don't know. They certainly didn't do what they should have done. It appears that should have been the first part of their conversation with their counselor. I should stress,
Chief, that there have been disputes on the timing of that. That's why I raised it, because as you indicated, if it's after the shooting has begun, it's one thing. If it's before, it's quite another. But what's unique, I think, and why I wanted to pick your brain about this is the parents being, brought up on charges here. That's very, very rare. I think the last time it's happened was back in 2000. What do you make of that, and prosecutors extending it to the parents?
It is rare, Neil, and there's a couple of ways to look at it, and certainly it will be pure speculation on my part. Some would say it's a gun grab, unless she can definitively show there were some overt actions on the part of the parents. Yes, the texts are problematic. Do we even know how long, if they knew that their son was going through some mental health crisis? That's a major question, because if they knew that, and there's been signs in the past, why we would want to have this person get a gun. But then it becomes even more problematic that you go to the school, you see this depiction, this what he drew. Well, parents get to make decisions, and one decision said, well, we're going to keep our child out of school. We're going to immediately get an evaluation, not what was recommended. Well, he can get an evaluation in 48 hours, but he can go back to class. Big red flag there, Neil. Yeah. And so I think when you talk about accountability, I think we got to look at the school, i.e. the counselor, maybe a teacher if they knew something. Certainly when you talk about additional charging, and you laid it out very well, when they were found on the east side of Detroit in a basement, and this person was allowed in, and the world knew that they were fugitives. So again, there may be additional charges coming, but we can't leave the school out of the equation because I think that's a big part of it. I think that school has done a good job based on what Sheriff Broussard of Oakland County said earlier, the fact that they have been training for this. The children responded appropriately. And the fact that there was, I believe, an armed sheriff on campus that responded very quickly, because it could have been a very different situation like Parkland. 17 deaths in Parkland.
That's right.
This could have been a lot worse here in Michigan.
Indeed. In the last hour, we had Andrew Pollack on, who lost his beautiful girl, Meadow, in that shooting. 17 were killed there, his daughter among them. But it does raise my final question for you, Chief. I always worry about the stuff we don't know, about these things that keep happening, where administrators or school personnel or parents might be aware of an individual, maybe their child, other children who are aware of things going on, administrators who are aware of real worrisome kids in their midst, and we don't know about it till it's way too late. How often do you think that's going on?
I think it happens more than we care to admit, Neil. We preach after these tragic situations that you see something, say something, but the reality is, you have someone who's in a school, in a leadership position, who becomes aware of something and really does nothing but offers some sage advice about, 48 hours. So I think it happens more than we care to admit. The one thing that is often troubling with me, especially when we talk about folks on the left that want to talk about gun reform, let's stop talking about the gun and let's start focusing on the individuals who do violent or engage in violent acts. That's what we need to focus on. If we start doing that, if we got a young man going through a mental crisis, let's deal with that issue. If we got some violent predatory suspect who gets released by some radical progressive judge back into our community and then predictably commits murder, then let's again focus on those things instead of focusing on the gun.
Chief Craig, thank you very much. I always hate it when we get together under these circumstances, but I always learn a lot. James Craig, the former Detroit Police Chief.